All right, we're moving on to a new module these next 2 weeks, and we're going to be taking a more intensive look at how our instruction is, whether or not it matches with our assessments, and how what role the assessment takes in driving our instruction and so forth. And this is something that all educators talk about. I mean, you talk to your first year education class professors, and they're probably going to say this is something that they talk about, or at least is mentioned. But we have a new challenge ahead of us, right? We have the challenge of all of these different learning environments. I was just talking to one of my own children's teachers in a traditional setting, and she was concerned about the way that we're now offering now the new testing for the state is going to be all online, but all of their instruction is face-to-face. And I face a similar problem in one of the environments I teach in that's all online, but they still have to take the OGT face-to-face. And we're talking about students who haven't been used to handwriting anything, then going to handwrite. Flip the problem around with the new assessment. So it brought to mind another interesting comment. She said, the way I've always taught students to take tests is using more face-to-face, paper-to-pencil methods. How do I teach a student to take a test online? What are the methods different? And you know what? I think she brings up some really interesting points. So as we're looking, I've really enjoyed reading through your blogs and your wikis and all the things you've produced at this point, because it's showing how we're all coming in at this conversation, I think first of all at a different, with different experiences, but we have a different way of processing. And I had not personally thought of how different test-taking skills should look online versus test-taking skills face-to-face, and it has really changed the way I've approached my classes this year. And so what I love about these conversations is that we're brought to mind things that we didn't necessarily think about before. And I mean, like that commercial where the kid goes, oh, mind-blowing, right? It's something so simple. So I hope that this week, or the next 2 weeks, are helpful to you in trying to be very deliberate. The words, my theme words, I think, for my late 30s and early 40s are, I'm always trying to be deliberate, and I'm trying to think of the other word that I always throw out, but just very conscientious of what I'm doing. Intentional. There's my word. I couldn't it's my word and I couldn't even think of it. It's one of those days. So deliberate and intentional. How can we approach our assessments with deliberation and intentionality? And maybe you already do this, but I have a suspicion that all of us have room to grow here as we approach this. And I have to tell you, I am taking an online class myself right now in Blackboard, which makes it even more interesting in teaching this Blackboard class. I have always, I would say almost always, been on the teacher side of the online platform, and I found myself last night at 10 o'clock retaking a quiz, absolutely frustrated, not sure where the materials were, embarrassed to ask my professor, and I had one of those mind-blowing times again, and thought, I hope that none of my students feel that way. Would you please reach out if you have questions. I will never embarrass you. In fact, you probably know a lot more than I do about a lot of things. And if you could just let me know if there's a question. I know that it's sort of like I liken being in an online classroom as we're getting used to this, and you're probably used to it by now, everything is, but it's almost like trying to cook in someone else's kitchen, right? You have to maneuver and manipulate ideas and find your resources, reach for the right ingredient, and where did I find that last time? And I would really appreciate too feedback. If this course is intuitive and worked for you and you felt like it was your own kitchen, great, let us know that. If it wasn't, and if something could be changed or moved around, let us know that too. So let's just walk through a little bit of the expectations for this week, or this chunk of weeks, if we could. And I'm just right in the classroom, no shame, I'm just reading right off of here. If you go to, of course, like we've been going to the learning units, and you click on Unit 2, weeks 4 and 5. Going to be mentioning backward design. A lot of you maybe have been trained in UBD or the Universal Backwards Design. If not, never fear, we've got some things here for you. Do click on the week overview just to see what there is there for you. And the learning, I'm sorry, you don't really click on it, you just read it. There's some learning outcomes, what the objective is of this course. And we're trying to practice what we preach when we talk about assessments and how we talk about having clear standards or clear objectives. That's one thing I think that maybe online education does almost better than, at least I feel like I do it better than when I taught in a face-to-face environment. And I still teach face-to-face, and I still do it better online, even though I know it's a good practice, or best practice if you will, to put an outcome out there, put an objective out there, especially for adult learners like yourselves. We need to know where we're going. And we do this clearly here, so I want you to look at those. And then we have a checklist, basically 2 activities during week 4, 2 activities during week 5. The activities are going to involve looking at alignment, looking at curriculum mapping or course mapping, and that the first assignment there is going to be a discussion forum. Do read through all of the criteria for this discussion. Do take time to look at the Quality Matters rubrics. We're going to look at some criteria that goes beyond the traditional classroom and really is written for the online classroom. Sometimes it's hard to find materials that are written just for online, although they're becoming more prolific. Some of them are not very profound, though. I don't know if you've noticed that. Then activity 2.2 is a matching game. Sometimes I just took a scavenger hunt quiz in this other class and it just annoyed me. So I hope you're not annoyed by our matching game, but it does give a different texture to what we're doing, and I do think it makes a lot of sense. It's having you match assessments with learning outcomes, and just to kind of think through it deliberately and how it would translate to your course that you're teaching or may teach in the future. We also have the assessment portfolio that we are kind of collecting throughout this, and that will that's outlined. I'll let you read that on your own, and that's one of the activities as well. So I said 2, the discussion and blog feedback and the assessment portfolio are all part of week 5. Week 4 is the discussion board and blog. Okay, so we have 2 different discussions going with because of the feedback element. We would want to let it span over 2 weeks. I also think there's some power in letting a discussion kind of float for 2 weeks and see what people chime in. There's always the late adapters, the ones who come in late with maybe a really profound idea after they've read everybody else's ideas. And I think also it gives me time as a thinker to really develop where I am at on something rather than just react and reply right away. And so that's why the span of 2 weeks. And those activities are all outlined in the classroom. And as always, you just have to click on where it says to click, and it will let you produce that item. So hopefully that makes it clearer. And if nothing else, you got to laugh at me making a crazy video for you. Have a great week or 2. Bye-bye.